Hey guys, and today we're going to be making the mini robot. So for this, you guys should have a motor that looks like this, a big piece of foam board, as well as some pins, beads, wires, and paper clips, and a battery. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is we gotta put our battery to our motor. So you guys should not be hot gluing your stuff together like this. That's what the foam is for. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut my foam board into smaller pieces so that way I can have a little bit of a buffer between my motor and my battery. And when you glue the foam on here, you want to make sure these pieces are facing up because that's going to be important for later on. And glue this on. And I'm going to go ahead and face it on just like this. And then here comes the part for the battery. Be careful with your hot glue gun, that is going to be super hot. I'm going to hold it there and I'm going to wait until it cools and then we can keep going. Alright, now that our battery and our motor and foam board are all glued together and now it's dry, we can go ahead and add the legs. So when you're adding the legs to this, it's better to cut up that piece of foam that we originally got and try to put it on the side. So you can put it on the side and put your pins in like this to do legs, or you can use your paper clips. I bent mine just like this. And you can go ahead and glue them on this way, but we just want to make sure we give our little robot here some legs to work on. So I'm going to go ahead and cut some more of my foam. And I'm going to go ahead and hot glue my foam so I can stick it on my motor. So now that I have the foam hot glued to the sides, I can go ahead and add the legs any way I like. And for your mini robot, you can kind of do the legs any way you would like. So you can do it with a mixture of pins, or you can do it with just one or the other. It's all up to you. Mine's gonna be a mixture of these pins as well. It's gonna be a mixture of these pins as well as some of the paper clips. And for whatever reason, when you're putting the pins into your foam and it seems like they're not staying there, that's what your hot glue gun is for. And you can go ahead and use some more hot glue to make sure your pins are going to stay connected to your little robot, or at least to the foam. Mine's doesn't need it, so I'm good. So there's my pins. One came out. So there are the pins for my robot's legs. I'm gonna add just 2 more attachments. I'm gonna make them more into like wings for my little robot here. So I'm gonna go ahead. Press that in. And now I'm gonna do the same on the other side. There we go. And now I have wings and some legs on my mini robot. And now we gotta wait until everything is dry and make sure everything is secure, and we can move on to the next step, which is probably gonna be one of the hardest steps. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this guy to the side just for a little bit. Alright, so for the next part, you guys are going to be needing your wires, and this is very important. But with these wires right here, they come just like, so your wires come just like this, but you do need some of the wire exposed, just like this tip right here, to actually connect it to the motor. So if you have, or ask your parents if they have something called a wire stripper, that's going to be the best tool to use. If they do not, you can use scissors, but just be careful and make sure to have an adult nearby, or have your adult do this, so that way you won't be getting hurt or electrocuted or anything like that. So with the strip part of the wire right here, I'm going to take my piece of the wire. It's already stripped, and what we need to do is we need to connect it to this contact right here. I know it's really hard to see, but we need to connect it to one of these contacts right here, these little holes. And when you're connecting them, you can either stick it through and you can twist it up like so, or in the directions that you guys have gotten. You can also do this by actually using a solder gun, which is a better handle on how to do this. But if you do not have a solder gun, you can always twist the wires, and I promise they would still work. And when you're twisting the wire, you want to make sure that the wire is very clapped down. You don't want any gaps in between, or else it's not going to have good conductivity. Alright, so now the wire is twisted on to the motor. So now you're going to do this to both sides, and then from there we will move on to the next step. So when you guys see me next, you're going to see the next step. Alright guys, now that we have our wires connected to our motor, the next important part is we have to connect one of these sides of the wire to this end of the battery. So when you do this, you can hot glue the wire to this end of the battery, but just make sure if you're hot gluing this to the end of the battery, you don't want to coat the whole entire part of the wire, or else this won't work at all. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hot glue this side and this side to the battery, so there's going to be some of the wires still exposed and still having some contact with the actual battery itself. So that's what I'm planning on doing. So I'm going to go ahead and hot glue one side here. And like I said, I'm just gluing it on the very edge, so it's only covering that part of the wire. And now I'm gonna hold it here and wait until this glue dries, so that way I can continue working, and when we come back, our glue will be dry. Alright guys, now that our eyes are finally dried, we're gonna take the last wire that's not connected, and we have to connect it to the battery, but we have to connect it to this end of the battery only because that's the only way our little robot is going to work. And when you do this, you can either use a glue gun or you can use some tape to do this. If you actually use tape to do this instead, you'll actually have an ability to turn your motor on and off so you won't run out your battery, because once your battery runs out, you're gonna have to replace the main body of your robot. But I do not have that, unfortunately, so I'm gonna end up hot gluing this wire to this end of the battery. And as you guys can hear, you can hear it going off. So let's go ahead and hot glue it. And like I said, if you guys do actually have tape, like electrical tape or anything like that, I suggest using electrical tape for this last part here. That way you can always turn your little guy on and off whenever you want to, and you can save the battery. And I might have already used the battery on mine, but if you guys can hear the whirring, that is my little mini robot. He's a little unbalanced, but once the glue is dry, you can try to move the wire around, and when you hear that motor going, you have a mini robot.